there, everybody. This is Kristen from Teaching Balance, and I am here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. And it is the final Monday of our month focusing on self-embodiment. And self-embodiment just takes a closer look at more physical health types of things, general well-being, healthiness. We talk a little bit about nourishing yourself and all of those sorts of things. And I thought it would be interesting to finish with something that is related to the physical body, and the idea behind it is basically just to be able to de-escalate emotionally and physically if you are feeling escalated or super stressed for any particular reason, and doing so with a particular technique that I'm not sure if I've talked about before here, called tapping. So basically the idea behind tapping, and there is a good amount out there, so although I'll be giving you the basics, sorry, my nose is itchy. Even though I'll be giving you the basics, if you are intrigued by this at all, I would encourage you just to look online. There's tons of videos about how to do it. There's books. The one that I've been kind of taking a deep dive on is this one. It's titled The Tapping Solution to Create Lasting Change, A Guide to Get Unstuck and Find Your Flow by Jessica Ortner. And it's good. I mean, it's funny, I had it for a long time, and I've been actually practicing tapping for a long time, but I hadn't really revisited the book in quite a bit, and I found it to be pretty interesting, not only, of course, because it talks about tapping, but there's all these other elements to it for personal development, basically all the things that that title suggests. So far I'm really enjoying it, and I'm almost done, which I like. So the tapping thing, it's also sometimes called emotional freedom technique, or EFT. I find that to sound a little odd to me, so I just like the idea of calling it tapping. And the premise is this: when you are interested in either calming your nervous system, relaxing, working through some stress. You could even use this if you're finding yourself dealing with some resistance towards action that you need to take, but for some reason there's a lot of pushback on it and you want to kind of tune into what's going on with that. This technique of tapping basically is just that you are, and I'll go through it in more detail in a moment, but tapping various meridian points on your body as a way to ground yourself in the present moment, as a way to downregulate, as a way to just be present while you're simultaneously holding in your awareness whatever it is that is troubling you or disturbing you or stressing you out or whatever it might be. So I have found it to be very helpful. This is one of those things that you kind of are, interested in giving a try or not. If it's not, then I would just encourage you to go ahead and when I start that timer, just do your regular 10-minute sit. And of course, you are more than welcome to turn off the volume or whatever you want to do, and we can just sit together. But if you do want to give it a try, here's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. So what I would like to do when I start that timer is I'm going to walk you through and demonstrate what the various meridian points are and how it works. And then one of the techniques that they suggest when it comes to tapping is first to just sort of state the facts as they are. What is the challenge? You're not catastrophizing it, but really like, what are you feeling in that moment? And I'll give you an example as I go through it. And then once you do one, I guess you could call it a round of tapping, and then you begin your second round and you allow yourself to essentially move very, very gradually in whatever way feels right from an expression and a holding of and a being present to the challenges and ultimately moving towards a greater sense of relief. So the first part of our actual sit, I'll be verbalizing and demonstrating for you. And then for the latter part, I'm going to cease verbalizing because then it's up to you to decide what you would like to repeat to yourself in your mind regarding the things that might be, stressing you out or whatever it might be. So I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. So my timer is going to be for 10 minutes. first round is going to be slower because I have to point out where we're going to begin. So if you haven't already, just allow yourself to find a posture that feels comfortable. If you'd like to close your eyes, you can, but of course for the demonstration purposes, you may want to watch this, and then you could always close your eyes later. And so typically tapping begins the whole session with a tapping on what's called the karate chop of your hand. So if you were, going to karate chop something, that outer meaty part of your palm is where we begin. And we only do that at the very beginning. And so when it comes to how hard do you tap, how quickly or slowly, it's just up to you. So whatever feels right. And so at the very beginning, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start tapping. I like to use 2 fingers generally. And I'm going to say to myself, even though I am dealing with the challenges of feeling stressed about our current political climate, that's the example I'm going to give, I still love and appreciate myself unconditionally. Something to that effect. So you're stating sort of the problem that you're going to be working with, and still, even though you're feeling stressed and troubled about it, you unconditionally love and accept yourself. Okay, so then I'm going to move into the regular rounds. And the first challenge I'm going to talk about as I tap in the very first meridian point, kind of over, it could either be towards the beginning of your eyebrow or center of the eyebrow, but somewhere up here. And I'm going to repeat, I'm going to say it out loud. You can say something similar in your own mind. I'm really having a hard time with the political climate right now and what's going on in our country and the problems that it's creating. And then the second point I'm going to go to is on the outer part of the eye. And by the way, it doesn't matter if it's the right side or the left. And again, just gently tapping, and I'm going to, now from this point, I'm just going to start riffing. I find this political climate to be incredibly stressful and makes me concerned about our democracy. And now I'm going to go to the third point, which is under the eye in the center. It makes me nervous because I'm afraid that while things are problematic, they can only get worse if we don't do something about this. Notice that I'm not holding back on my stress and the things that are bothering me. And then the fourth one, the next one, is right underneath your septum in your nose, in that little divot above your lips. And so right here, I watch the news and I try not to get concerned, but it still is very troubling to me. And you can repeat these a few times if you want. And then the next one, after this middle upper lip, now you're going to go to kind of the mid-chin, above your chin bump, just underneath the lower lip in the center. Sometimes I feel like there's nothing that I can do to be of help in this political environment. And then the next one is the collarbone. And again, either side, it doesn't matter. I tend to kind of just gravitate towards the middle, but it doesn't have to be too specific. When I see the misinformation that's out in the world, it also disturbs me and makes me feel hopeless. And then the final one, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it based on our camera placement, but basically it's just underneath. I tend to use my right hand, so I'm going to reach for my left, kind of under your arm for women, kind of where your bra strap would be. And I'm just going to kind of tap there. This is the one I find to be the most awkward, and sometimes I skip it. And then that last thing I'll say is, I'm going to vote, and I'm going to exercise my democratic rights, and I'm going to be hopeful that it'll make a difference. Okay, and then we're going to cycle through yet again, coming back up to that eyebrow. And now I'm going to just try to move a little bit away from the stress and say there are a lot of good people out in the world trying to make a difference. and doing what they can and what's within their power. Out to the side of the eye. I believe in our system, and even though it's been challenged and things are problematic, I do believe that it's strong enough to get us through this moment of challenge. Now, underneath the eye, I can choose how much news I consume so that I don't get overwhelmed. And then I'm above the upper lip, choosing to regulate how much news and media I consume is not putting my head in the sand, but is allowing myself to manage and not feel overwhelmed by the situation. And then under the chin, in spite of it all, I still feel hopeful, and helpful. A collarbone. I can't worry too much about what will be. I can only focus on what I can change in this moment and affect. And then the side, under the armpit. I'll just keep doing what I can, contributing, and being aware to whatever degree feels right to me. And now I'm just going to go a little bit more positive. And again, you can do this in 3 rounds, longer, fewer. I do believe that this is a country filled with good people and that goodness will survive. I do have faith in our system. I do think it's important to vote and to contribute in the process. I do feel like my vote counts and that I have a voice. I do believe that there are positive changes coming ahead. I know that there's only so much I can control, and I can accept that. I'm going to allow myself to do what I can and to try to let go of what is entirely beyond my control. So in the 2.5 or so minutes that remain, I'm just going to go through the tapping so you can see it. I'll be silent, and I invite you to just play with this and see what comes up for you in terms of what you might want to say to yourself. Keep breathing. And wherever you are in the process, just allowing yourself to finish it out. And of course, that's our 10 minutes. So the way I think about tapping, besides everything that I've already said, is I think of it as, I don't know, extra help when it comes to getting your body more down-regulated to a calmer state so you can get a little bit more clarity. If you've ever had that sort of experience where you're trying to meditate or even just like pull it together and you just can't, I find this to be very, very helpful and supportive. There is something to be said for the fact that you're doing something, when, if you're amongst other people, they can see you doing it. But the other thing is if you're, for example, at work or out in the world, you could always excuse yourself and go to the restroom and, find a moment of privacy to do that. There's no, minimum amount of time. There's no maximum. I've heard of people doing this, for a whole longer meditation session. I would look into it if you're intrigued at all by that. And again, that book I referenced, if you're curious again, it's called The Tapping Solution, and the author is Jessica Ortner. There's a lot of stuff out there. And really, it's just a matter of, if it works, give it a try. And I find that it works for me. So, as always, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself, and thank you for allowing me to accompany you on this journey. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Happy Halloween. Bye.